Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your AMAC Weekly News. First up, Joe Biden has been in office for a little over a week and is already destroying the lives of many Americans. Why? Well, it's a great question. He is doing it, we do know, through executive orders, and I'll have more about this coming up in just a second. Up next, the decisions made in 2020 that were supposedly focused on protecting Americans from COVID-19, well, they destroyed a large portion of American businesses. Guess what's just happened? In just days after the inauguration, all these restrictions in liberal states are just disappearing. So why now? We'll take a look at that. And finally, AMAC Action President Bob Carlstrom and AMAC Action Senior Vice President Andy Mangione are here to update AMAC members on the reality of the Biden administration executive orders and how it will impact your life. Quick reminder though, if you haven't shared this on your timeline, make sure you hit that share button right now. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. It's been a little over a week for the Biden administration. The outlook for America is not looking great. The best visual for what Biden is already doing to the lives of Americans is a cartoon that was drawn by Michael Ramirez. Take a look. This image is a reminder of the fact that the moment the Biden administration decided to cancel the Keystone Pipeline and that permit, 1,000 union jobs immediately vanished and around 10,000 additional jobs were also lost. What is even more heartbreaking is that this was just one of the many actions Biden took on day one of his presidency. Since Inauguration Day, he has fired shots at the oil and gas industry as well. Just this week, he also implemented a moratorium on new oil and gas leasing on federal land. He is not only destroying American jobs, but he is also ensuring our country is far less safe. In just 1 week, he already signed 6 executive orders concerning immigration, which include a proclamation pulling funds from the border wall completely. While the extreme left is cheering him on, it's important to remember what Biden said about executive orders just a few months ago in October when he was begging for you to vote for him. Take a listen.
So there's not going to be any delay on the tax increases?
No, well, I got to get the votes. That's why, the one thing that I have this strange notion. We are a democracy. Some of my Republican friends and some of my Democratic friends even occasionally say, well, if you can't get the votes by executive order, you're going to do something. Things you can't do by executive order unless you're a dictator. We're a democracy. We need consensus.
That is our president of the United States of America, Joe Biden, clearly knowing that he was going to lie right to your face and every American by saying what he just said. And yes, we have the proof of this. Let's also be clear as to the gravity of his actions. In just 6 days, Biden signed more than 28 executive orders, which dwarfs his predecessors. And don't believe the lie that the Biden administration actually wants to be transparent or that they want you to know what is in these executive orders. In fact, just look at the White House press secretary. She's the woman that's supposed to go out and tell all of us what's actually going on, what the president is actually doing, and how it would benefit the country. Well, she doesn't have much to say about what the president's actually doing right now. Take a look at how little she's even telling the press about what they're really doing at the White House.
I'll circle back if there's more I can share with you. But I'll circle back with you if there's more to convey. I'll have to just circle back with you. We can circle back with you. I'm happy to circle back with you. I can circle back. I will have to circle back on that one. That's an excellent question. Oh, such an important question. We will circle back with you, and we'll circle back with you. It's an interesting question, but we'll circle back. I'm happy to circle back, but I'll have to circle back with you on it. It's a good question, but we'll circle back with you on this today. We will certainly circle back with you more directly.
You might want to take a look at that press conference and these booked answers that they're giving the media about, we'll get back to you, we'll circle back with you, and compare them to dictators and tyrants and how they answer questions from their media. Well, when they don't want to answer a question, they always tell you the same thing. We'll circle back. We'll get back to you. If you're the ones doing these actions, you should be able to explain them to the American people. Clearly, this White House does not want transparency. Yet, Joe Biden continues to act through executive orders without the voices and the votes of Congress, which is also not how our government's supposed to work. At the same time, the Biden administration is refusing over and over again to answer questions. This also includes Democratic members of Congress. And to be clear, this is at the beginning of his administration. We have to continue to fight for this type of information to become public. Our founders believed that our government should not be run by one man through executive action or executive order. In the words of Abraham Lincoln, we want a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And we at AMAC are going to do everything we can to make sure that is exactly what we all get, not a president running a country through executive actions. Do as I say, not as I do, seems to be the new theme of the Biden administration, because on day one of his administration, Joe Biden signed an executive order requiring masks to be worn on all federal property. He also signed an executive order coordinating a government-wide COVID-19 response. All of this, yet he still can't seem to wear his own mask at his own inauguration on federal property. That's right. He also allowed for his press secretary to take the fall when the administration came up with a new excuse for why he didn't have a mask on while he was visiting the Lincoln Memorial on inauguration night with his family. The media asked a simple question, and this is how the White House press secretary answered it.
Why weren't President Biden and all members of the Biden family masked at all times on federal lands last night if he signed an executive order that mandates masks on federal lands at all times?
At the inaugural
At the Lincoln Memorial, yes.
I think, Steve, he was celebrating an evening of a historic day in our country, and certainly he signed the mask mandate because it's a way to send a message to the American public about the importance of wearing masks, how it can save tens of thousands of lives. We take a number of COVID precautions, as you know, here in terms of testing, social distancing, mask wearing ourselves, as we do every single day. But I don't know that I have more for you on it than that.
That's right. You just heard the White House press secretary tell you that it's okay for Joe Biden and his family to not wear a mask because they're celebrating. But you cannot enjoy weddings and birthdays or have Christmas or Thanksgiving with your family or friends because it's just too dangerous and you might kill grandma. In fact, if you do partake in celebrations without a mask, you are considered anti-American by many on the left. Dr. Mark Siegel responded to this complete and utter hypocrisy from the Biden administration with this comment. Take a look.
Actually, I wrote about this in my book, and the new press secretary had a really tough job there because that kind of inconsistency or even hypocrisy breeds fear in people that are looking for leadership. And the only way that you're going to get people to comply with masking is to do it yourself. People are watching that on camera. They say, where's the mask? You want me to wear a mask and you're not wearing one and you forgot about it? You know, Kamala Harris took hers off right after she was sworn in, forgot to put it back on for a while. Then you showed that, you know, on the night of celebrations. Celebrations isn't an opt-out where you get a moment, okay, now I'm celebrating, no mask. As a matter of fact, if you're celebrating, you're going to be shouting, you're going to be drinking, you're going to be much more likely to spread COVID if you have it. Has to be completely consistent in order to work and to send the message they want.
If there's any theme you should understand about the Biden administration at this point, it's that you're a minion and you have to play by a different set of rules than the elite who are in charge of this country. Biden is not only violating his own executive orders, which he's mandating you live by, but we have also seen big changes in the liberal approach to COVID since Inauguration Day. So let me actually walk you through the hypocrisy of the left on COVID-19 since Joe Biden became president. On January the 20th, that was Inauguration Day, and it was also the highest COVID death count in a day in America's history. Yet within 2 days, on January the 22nd, Washington, D.C. all of a sudden reopened indoor dining. You got to ask the question, why now? Oh, is it because Joe Biden became the president and we don't care anymore about COVID? Well, a day later, on January the 23rd, Chicago and their Mayor Lightfoot decided we got to reopen indoor dining. Yet they had just hit their highest number of COVID-19 cases as well. The question you got to ask is, why now? Oh, is it because Joe Biden just became president? And on January the 25th, California just decided to remove its stay-at-home order. You heard me correctly. All of these restrictions were lifted right after Joe Biden became president because they understood that these orders were literally destroying American lives and the businesses. They needed them, by the way, to get you to blame Donald Trump before the election day. And now all of a sudden, we're going back to normal. The left wants to convince Americans that they are the saviors of American small businesses, that they're the ones helping you, when in reality they were hurting you. They want you to believe that they're fixing the COVID-19 crisis in a more efficient manner than President Trump could have ever done. Yet they're the ones that shut down American cities. What they don't realize is that Americans aren't stupid. We have to call them out for their hypocrisy, for their lies, and for hurting American businesses. The fact is, COVID-19 numbers are higher now than they have been at any point during the pandemic. If there was any time to keep things closed down, it would be right now. Yet all of these liberal cities and these liberal mayors and these liberal governors who've shut down their states, so you would be angry at Donald Trump for not doing a better job of controlling COVID. Once Biden got into office, they said, hey, we got our guy there. You can now go back to doing business. We'll make sure that we keep pointing out this hypocrisy as we move forward. We're in the first week of the new president of the United States of America, Joe Biden's administration, the first full week, and now we're seeing what they're really going to do to this country. Obviously, they're not doing it through the legislature, they're doing it through executive actions. Joining me now to talk about what all has been done, Senior Vice President Andy Mangione of AMAC Action and President of AMAC Action, Bob Carlstrom, are joining us today on AMAC Weekly News. Andy, Bob, I appreciate you coming on. And Andy, I want to start with Joe Biden. He decided to do some changes to some laws through executive order rather than through the legislative process. That obviously is a big deal. But one of those dealt with the issue of insulin prices. It was something the president was very proud of doing, and it was bipartisan support across the country to lower the prices of life-saving prescription drugs. And now the Biden administration said, hold on a second, we're not going to let that happen yet. Why did they do this?
Let's start the conversation, Ben, by pointing out that drug prices fell on aggregate for the first time in nearly 50 years under President Trump. This is according to MarketWatch.com. Now, an executive order that President Trump signed that was intended to lower the prices of both insulin and epinephrine has been suspended by Joe Biden. Biden suspended the order for 60 days, just 2 days before it was supposed to go into effect. They're telling us they want to take time to review the order. Ben, AMAC members have told us time and again how they ration insulin, how they reuse supplies to stretch their medication dollars. They've told us about making tough choices between other living expenses and paying for their insulin. Now, Biden and his team can review this order and simply leave it in place, or they could get rid of it altogether. And we certainly hope that this administration isn't playing politics with people's health, but we suspect that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, we know that there was record amounts of dark money that came into the Biden campaign. It's going to be very interesting to see once that starts to actually be looked at by some good members in the media. I say that sarcastically, what we're going to find. And you got to wonder if there's pharmaceutical giants that got into the pockets of Joe Biden's campaign, and this is one of the things they wanted in return. We're going to obviously keep AMAC members updated on that. Bob, I want to pivot real quick to another part of Biden and what he is doing here through these executive orders. Without considering really the consequences for so many Americans in so many different states, what are some of the biggest moves that people should be concerned about, the consequences for all Americans through these executive actions and orders?
Well, you're absolutely right. We've just seen an avalanche of executive orders coming out of there in which there apparently has been very little thought of the impact that they would have on individuals, on families, on small businesses, and that. Particularly when you look at the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline, that put 11,000 workers out of work, unemployed them immediately, and you're talking about their families. You're talking about a ripple effect down the pipeline, to New Orleans. So it's going to affect many people in many states, and that was just really absolutely unconscionable. Other regulations, particularly putting a freeze on a number of executive orders and practices of the Trump administration to bring clarity, transparency, thoughtfulness to regulations, have all been put on ice, subject to review. And the great concern that we have in all of that is that the presumption in the executive order is to make it easier for federal agencies to issue regulations. Those regulations are another tax on businesses and individuals, and they're going to increase the costs of goods and services provided or put people out of business. And so consequently, I'm very concerned about the lack of forethought study. I just have to think that the president was signing these things because they sounded good and never really thought it through, or it was never advised properly.
They owed a lot of favors to get to the White House, and it seems like they're paying off on them through executive actions and orders instead of through the legislature. And this is going to be the way the Biden administration clearly operates. I also think there's another side note that we do need to bring up very quickly, Andy. I got about 30 seconds left. Rand Paul said to all Americans, you better pay attention to what the administration's actually doing instead of the shiny silver object of impeachment over here that the media is focusing on. We now know that impeachment's not going to happen, right? They don't have the votes to do it in the Senate. We don't even have a Supreme Court justice overseeing this impeachment. You have a partisan Democrat that's already said he's in favor of impeachment that's supposed to be nonpartisan overlooking impeachment. And the point that Senator Paul was making is, don't get caught up with this over here, impeachment. Look at what the administration is actually doing right now.
Ben, you're absolutely right. This is a sham of a process, and the bait and switch, the distraction by the media is in full play. Rand Paul was very astute in pointing out the fact that we should be ever vigilant and keeping an eye on this administration while they try to take our eye off the ball and distract us with the sham of this impeachment process.
Andy, Bob, I really appreciate you coming on AMAC Weekly News. And obviously, you're going to be keeping our AMAC members up to date on what's going on, not just in Washington, but at the state level as well. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
That's it for this edition of your AMAC Weekly News. But a quick reminder, two things. Make sure that you share this program with your family and friends. If you're watching this on social media, hit that share button right now. Also, it's more important than ever that you're a member of AMAC. So if you haven't renewed your AMAC membership or joined AMAC, do it right now. AMAC is committed to talking to you wherever you live, in the state that you live in, to make sure you know how to fight back against what's happening in Washington. We are going to have to protect our First and Second Amendment rights at the state level. And AMAC is committed and dedicated to making sure you know what is going on in your state so that you can protect our Constitution. That's it for this edition of AMAC Weekly News. I'm Ben Ferguson, and I'll see you back next week for our next episode.